So just last week, we saw the release of the first part of the musical film series Wicked, a film adaptation of the stage musical sensation of the same name, which in turn was an adaptation of the novel, also of the same name. I'll be honest, prior to going to see this thing, it wasn't really something I was all that excited for. It's not that I thought it was going to be bad or anything of the sort, it's just that I was, and still am to be fair, an extreme casual fan of this franchise. I'd never seen the actual musical, never watched clips of the musical, don't really follow most of the actors, and hell, my only real exposure to the soundtrack itself was through Defying Gravity, the Glee cover. I feel like that's probably the song that most transcended the actual Wicked fandom, so whilst I felt like there was a good chance that the movie itself was going to be a good one, after all there were a lot of early reports that it was going to be a banger, I didn't really get swept up on the hype train either. It seems, though, that this is going to be the movie of 2024, in the same way that last year was largely defined by the likes of Barbie at the box office and with audiences. Wicked seems to be getting that same star treatment. I don't know if it's going to have the same impact as Inside Out 2 in terms of its finances, but it's already on track to becoming the most successful Broadway film adaptation ever, as it had a bigger opening than both Into the Woods and Les Mis. As of right now, it's grossed close to $180 million off of $150 million. And the film only came out on the 22nd of November. Not too shabby. It's going to end up doing very well, and with a sequel out next year, this franchise is well and truly going to usher in a whole new era of musical films, I reckon. Maybe that's premature, but in this era, I feel like Hollywood's going to hunt the money harder than ever before, and milk trends for all they're worth. As for the actual reception that it's getting, it's overwhelmingly positive. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 90% critical score, from close to 300 critics, and an audience score of 96% off of over 10,000 reviews. It shows that people really loved it, and a lot of people are going to see it. It's doing well for itself. My god, it's posting big numbers now. I'm curious to see how the second part's gonna do. Are we talking back-to-back billion-dollar box offices? Business is picking up, it seems. So like I said, I was not a big fan by any means, an absolute casual fan. Hell, probably even less than a casual fan. I only knew the one song, and that the story was an alternate take on The Wizard of Oz and the origins of the various different characters that Dorothy meets in the original story. Now though, I'm well and truly converted because this film was just so much fun. I think my only real critique, and it's not really a fair critique because of the nature of what this is, you should know what you're getting into, but it's a very long movie, and it has a second part that's not a sequel, but simply a direct continuation. By the end of the film, close to 3 hours in, the soft drink was starting to kick in, which is fine when you're watching at home and you can pause and go away, but it's less fine when you're in the final sequence and you don't want to miss a thing, as you've been enraptured by everything else. Also, it's a year until we get the next one, till we actually get to finish the story. Oh, I want it now. At least it's not a brutally long wait for the follow-up though. These days, it often feels like you have to wait for 2 years or more for follow-ups on films or TV shows that you love. So the concept of only having to wait a single solitary year is more than refreshing. I'm still mega salty about it though. But yes, back to the film. This is a musical film, so I think we have to start by talking about the music and the songs. Now, I don't think this is something you can give 100% credit to the movie for. After all, it is an adaptation, and I would expect that all of the songs you hear have been ripped right from the musical itself. That being said though, the songs themselves are bangers regardless, and they're really well performed by the cast. Sometimes there's a prominent character in these sorts of films who gets a really important song, but it's clear that the actor got their role due to their profile or their acting ability, whilst their singing just isn't up to scratch. That's not the case in this film for me. Everybody's singing these songs to perfection, and Ariana and Cynthia, absolutely top tier. There was a lot of drama surrounding these two with the whole social media debacle for Cynthia raging against that fan edit of the poster to make it look like the old musical poster, and then also with Ariana for the whole affair with the SpongeBob the musical guy, who's also in this movie as, ironically, her failed love interest, who somewhat settles for Nessa Rose, Alphaba's sister. But yeah, the two actresses, they really hit it out of the park with their vocals and their general performances during the singing portions of the film. So suddenly for me, and I think for everybody, the drama has faded away. No one cares anymore, because it was just so good. Same goes for the other more minor characters too, but none of them had quite the same chance to show off their vocal abilities, quite like the two leads. The orchestral side of things was also top tier. I got goosebumps from the score alone multiple times throughout the movie. Lots of great sequences of purely visual acting with only a small amount of dialogue, which was all heavily enhanced by the score. In terms of my favourite songs, I have no idea what the general hardcore fan consensus would be in terms of which songs are people's favourites, and which is the most iconic outside of Defying Gravity. Defying Gravity was an absolute banger. I also really liked Popular, which I feel like is probably also one of the show's most iconic songs, just a guess. I think I also really liked One Short Day. I found that one really fun too. Those are just my favourites though, because in all honesty, pretty much every song in the film landed for me. Sometimes there are songs which are a bit meh, and everyone knows they're meh. But I think everything at minimum was highly enjoyable here. And I really thought that the accompanying choreography and filmography in regards to the musical numbers was awesome too. Especially the whole finale sequence, holy hell. Oh, and Jonathan Bailey in the library dancing with the spinning bookshelves. Hell yeah. Well, we've talked about the singing performances, so we might as well move over to the acting performances. Great across the board. Pretty generic statement, but it's true. I thought everybody was great. But I do have to say that Ariana Grande was probably my favourite. I kind of forgot that she'd been an actress before. It slipped my mind. I only associate her with music, and so I came into the film expecting that it would be one of those instances of her being chosen for star power and singing ability, only for her to burst my bubble and put out my favourite performance in the whole movie. Just her mannerisms, the way she delivers lines, her facial expressions. It created a deeply rich but especially funny character. Even when she was just a minor part of a scene or in the background, she was so much fun. Elphaba was another really top tier performance, so much heart and angst in the way she delivers her lines and in her facial expressions. Really enjoyed the scenes where she'd let down her guard and she had all this hope of acceptance in her eyes, like when she finally befriends Glinda. Jonathan Bailey was the quintessential roguish love interest, intentionally played to be shallow, but also with a whole lot of depth to the performance too, hinting at his future in the story. I really like Michelle Yeoh's performance as well. Her character's one of those very obviously two-faced people that's a complete angel to those she likes or she sees use in, but is cold and cut off to anybody else. Only to be able to flick a switch and turn on her supposed prodigy just like that. Classic narcissist, and one who was played to perfection. So delightfully hateable by the end, especially when she's spewing all that BS about how Elphaba's a wicked witch. Didn't really see much from the wizard, but what we did see was fun. Delightfully slimy and pathetic. A little weasel and a con artist who excels in getting in your head. Once again, played to perfection. I know I'm calling a lot of things perfect, and I'm probably currently experiencing some pretty extreme recency bias, but hell, I just thought everything was great. Oh, and I'll add Peter Dinklage's voice performance too. It was just so heartbreaking at times. In terms of the visuals, I thought the movie was once again just amazing. Great sets, great costumes, and great use of CGI. For these big grand musical adaptations, that's something that always needs to be done well. The visuals. They have to be over the top and colourful and beautiful. It needs to evoke that same awe that you'd feel going to see it live on Broadway or West End or whatever. If that side of things is more subdued or bland, then I think it drags everything down immediately. But it isn't, and so the acting and singing, it's all wonderfully enhanced by these top tier visuals. Especially loved that final song where Elphaba's singing and flying over the Emerald City as the newly dubbed Wicked Witch of the West with the orange sunset on the horizon. It's just yes. Also love the visual contrast between Elphaba and Glinda. I'm sure that's not really a movie original concept, but it was done so well in the movie. Even before Elphaba starts wearing her iconic black outfit, she's just wearing more plain and subdued clothing, hoping to blend in. Meanwhile, Glinda's always over the top to the max with the pink outfits and whatnot, and it created a nice visual tapestry on screen. I'm running out of things to gush about. I did read a lot of comments and discussion about how in a lot of people's minds, the weakest part of the OG musical was always the story beats. Whilst the visuals and acting and the songs were top tier, the narrative was the weak link. Not bad, but weaker than the rest. For me though, either those people are wrong, or they improved things for the film. I really enjoyed the overarching story that we saw throughout part 1, with Elphaba's slow acceptance of the fact that she is different to everybody else, and her growing desire to stand up for people who are scapegoated and mistreated, just like she has been. Seeing her original hope, thinking the wizard can solve everything as she always dreamed and believed, only for that to be shattered as she discovers that he's a huckster, and he's actually behind the rampant anti-animal sentiment that's sweeping Oz. I love the enemies to friend arc of Glinda and Elphaba, but also the undercurrent of sisters to enemies from the two actual sisters. Maybe not on Elphaba's side, but Nessarose is clearly not the wholesome sister that Elphaba thinks that she is. I really like the whole needing an enemy storyline, which explained why the animals were vilified by the wizard. It was a really cool social commentary to me on how nothing quite unites people like hate. And the dialogue overall across the whole movie was witty and snappy. I loved how they just randomly said some words differently for no reason other than to be quirky. Just a lot of laughs to be had in this script. And so yeah, overall the movie's incredible. I loved every minute, and there were a lot of minutes to love. But with all that being said, not really much else to say, and I will just remind you that these have all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the movie if you've seen it? If you haven't seen it, are you gonna? Have I convinced you? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.